A stranger's yawn shouldn't be able to control your face. But it can. You are sitting across from someone you've never met. They yawn. 3 seconds later, without deciding to, you yawn too. You didn't choose it. Your jaw just moved on its own. This happens so often you've stopped noticing it. But it shouldn't happen at all. Yawning has nothing to do with being tired. Or almost nothing. Scientists have been trying to explain it for over a century, and the truth is far stranger than you need more sleep. The real answer involves your brain's temperature, your most ancient survival instincts, and a kind of invisible thread that connects you to everyone around you, even someone you've never met. You are about to find out why a stranger's yawn can move through a room like a wave, and why you, right now, might already feel your jaw twitch just reading about it. Start with the basic act itself. A yawn is not just an open mouth. It's a deep inhale, a stretch of the jaw muscles, a brief pause, then a long exhale. Your heart rate ticks up for a moment. Your face muscles stretch in a way almost nothing else makes them do. Researchers call this a stereotyped motor pattern, a fancy way of saying it's the same sequence, every time, in every person, almost like a tiny ritual hardwired into you. Here's the part that surprises people. You start yawning before you're even born. Ultrasound studies have captured fetuses yawning in the womb as early as 11 weeks. A creature with no lungs full of air, no need for oxygen from breathing, yawns anyway. Whatever yawning is for, it isn't really about needing a breath. So what is it about? For decades, the leading theory was about oxygen. The idea was simple. Low oxygen, high carbon dioxide, brain says open wide and gulp in some air. It made intuitive sense. It was also wrong. In the 1980s, researcher Robert Provini ran an experiment where people breathed air with extra carbon dioxide or pure oxygen, expecting yawn rates to spike or drop. Neither happened. Yawning didn't care about the air mixture at all. The oxygen theory, taught for generations, quietly fell apart. So researchers went looking elsewhere. And they found something in your skull, not your lungs. Your brain runs hot. Literally. It generates a tremendous amount of heat for its size, and it works best within a narrow temperature window. When your brain's temperature creeps up, from fatigue, from boredom, from sitting too long in a stuffy room, something needs to cool it down. A yawn does exactly that. The deep inhale of cooler air, the stretch of the jaw, the increased blood flow to the face, all of it acts like a tiny radiator venting heat away from your skull. Psychologist Andrew Gallup tested this directly. He had participants hold cold packs to their foreheads and found they yawned far less often, even when they were sleepy or bored. Cool the brain artificially and the urge to yawn drops. Let it warm up and yawning returns. This is why you yawn more in warm rooms than cold ones. This is why a yawn so often arrives right before sleep. Your brain temperature naturally rises in the period leading up to rest, and the yawn is your body's last cooling effort before you power down. That explains why you yawn. It does not explain the strangest part. Why does someone else's yawn make you yawn too? This is where it gets interesting. Contagious yawning isn't really about tiredness at all. It's about connection. Studies have found that you are far more likely to catch a yawn from a close friend or family member than from a stranger. One set of observational studies, led by researcher Ivan Norcia, tracked thousands of yawns across different relationships and found a clear pattern. Emotional closeness predicted contagion far better than anything else. Strangers rarely set each other off. People who love each other do it constantly. Why would emotional closeness matter here? Because contagious yawning appears to be tied to empathy. Your brain has a network of cells, sometimes linked to what are called mirror neurons, that fire both when you perform an action and when you watch someone else perform it. Watching someone yawn activates some of the same brain regions involved in feeling what others feel. In a sense, your brain doesn't just see the yawn. It rehearses it. This is also why yawn contagion shows up, or doesn't, in surprising places. Studies on children with autism spectrum conditions have found reduced rates of contagious yawning compared to neurotypical children, a finding researchers link to differences in social mirroring rather than tiredness. Meanwhile, dogs catch yawns from their owners. Chimpanzees catch them from each other and even from yawning animations on a screen. The contagion tracks the strength of a social bond, almost like a leaking signal of attention and care. Now go back further. Much further. Before language, before fire, before anything you'd recognize as human culture, your ancestors lived in tight social groups where survival depended on everyone staying alert together. Some researchers propose that contagious yawning evolved as a synchronizing signal, a way for a group to align its alertness. If one member's brain temperature rises and they start to fade, a yawn spreading through the group could nudge everyone's arousal level into sync at once, useful for a group that needed to wake up, settle down, or stay watchful together. A troop of primates resting in the open is vulnerable. A troop that drifts into drowsiness at different times is more vulnerable still. A shared yawn, spreading like a wave, may have helped keep the whole group's internal clock running on the same rhythm. Think about what that means. The thing you experience as an awkward, almost embarrassing reflex, the thing you stifle behind your hand in meetings, may be a leftover thread of an ancient group survival mechanism. You are not just cooling your brain. You may be syncing it with the people around you, the way your ancestors once synced their alertness in the dark, when staying awake together was the difference between safety and disaster. There's a strange twist still to come. Contagious yawning isn't just triggered by watching someone yawn. Reading the word yawn can trigger it. Hearing a description of a yawn can trigger it. Even strongly imagining one can trigger it. Some studies suggest that simply being told a story about yawning, much like this one, measurably raises the odds that you yawn before it ends. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish between seeing the act and being primed to imagine it. The suggestion alone is often enough. This raises an odd question. If contagious yawning runs on empathy, does that mean people who feel less empathy yawn less? Researcher Atsushi Senju ran studies looking at exactly this, comparing yawn contagion rates in children with and without autism spectrum traits. The pattern held. Lower rates of contagious yawning lined up with differences in social attention, not with tiredness, not with boredom, and not with how much sleep anyone had gotten the night before. Yawning, it turns out, is a strangely accurate mirror of how tightly your social radar is tuned to the people in the room. It gets stranger again when you look at age. Babies yawn constantly, but they don't catch yawns from others until much later. Studies tracking infants and toddlers found that contagious yawning, as opposed to ordinary yawning, doesn't reliably appear until somewhere around age 4 or 5, right as children are developing what psychologists call theory of mind, the ability to understand that other people have thoughts and feelings separate from their own. Before that capacity comes online, a yawn is just a yawn. Once it comes online, yawns start to spread. The reflex seems to wait for empathy to be ready before it switches on, as if your brain doesn't bother syncing with others until it's actually capable of understanding that there are others to sync with. Go back further still, past your own childhood into the deep stretch of time before recorded history. Your ancestors didn't sleep in private rooms behind locked doors. They slept in groups, often in the open, surrounded by predators that hunted at night. A group is only as safe as its least alert member. If one person drifts into drowsiness while everyone else stays sharp, that person becomes a liability and potentially a target. Some researchers argue that a contagious yawn, spreading quickly through a resting group, may have acted like a synchronizing pulse, nudging everyone's arousal level to shift together. Wake up together. Settle down together. Stay watchful together. A scattered, mistimed group is vulnerable in a way a synchronized one isn't. You can still see traces of this synchronizing function in animals that live in tight social groups today. Wolves yawn in contagious chains before a hunt, and some researchers have proposed this may help coordinate the pack's collective alertness right before they need to move as one. Chimpanzees catch yawns not only from each other but from animated chimp characters on a video screen, suggesting the trigger isn't really about smell or sound or any single sense, but about recognizing the act itself, however it's presented. Even dogs, an entirely different species, catch yawns from their human owners far more often than from strangers, and more often still from owners they're closely bonded to. The contagion seems to trace the exact shape of a relationship, like a kind of social litmus test running quietly in the background. Think about what that means for you walking through an ordinary day. A yawn moving through a meeting room isn't really about everyone being equally tired. It's a rough map of who in that room is unconsciously paying attention to whom. A yawn passing between you and a friend at a slow point in conversation isn't a sign of boredom so much as a sign of attunement, your nervous system quietly tracking theirs. The reflex you've spent your whole life trying to hide behind a hand turns out to be one of the most honest, least controllable signals your brain ever sends about who it considers close. So here's a strange thing to sit with. If contagious yawning really is a marker of empathy and social bonding, then the fact that you almost certainly felt the urge to yawn somewhere in the last few minutes isn't a coincidence or a trick. It's your ancient social brain doing exactly what it was built to do, reaching out even through a screen, even through written words, and trying to sync itself with another mind nearby. You sat down to learn a fact about a strange little reflex. What you actually found was a window into how deeply your brain is wired to feel what others feel, to fall into rhythm with the people around you, whether you notice it happening or not. A stranger's yawn was never really controlling your face. It was your face answering a question you didn't know was being asked. Do I trust this person? Do I feel close to them? Am I in sync with them? Answered before a single word was spoken. It's your ancestors' oldest trick for staying connected, still quietly running in the background of your mind, every single time your jaw moves on its own.